start by, I'd like to welcome all of you for coming, and I'd like to, especially with the weather and what's going on, and if it rains, we probably won't, it's one of those things that make it very difficult to be here, but being this close to the city, we're very grateful to have a place like this so close to the commune. I'll tell you a bit more about the commune after. But before we get into the official, and I welcome our wonderful delegates and politicians that have come, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we meet today, paying my respect to their elders past and present, as well as to the emerging leaders. But I also would like to acknowledge and pay respect to all of the migrants, the past and present, who have contributed to making Australia what it is today. And of course, me being a son of migrants, and most people in this audience being son of migrants, I'd like to acknowledge that as well. So thanks for coming. I'll also take the great opportunity to welcome some very important people in the room that do a marvellous job, and some of you might have met these people, some of you might not have. But we've got with us our wonderful Lord Mayor Adrian Schrinner, which will come and say a few words in a minute. We've got our Deputy Lord Mayor, the wonderful Krista Adams. Thank you for coming. We've got our fantastic, the official title, because Dominique landed, she's the Queensland Small Business Commissioner for the Queensland Government, so thank you. We've also got Councillor Vicky Howard. Vicky, thank you for coming. And he's also a councillor in the area we live, in New Farm and Central Ward. And we've got our councillor here in this area, Julia Dixon, for councillor for Hamilton. So if you haven't met some of these wonderful people, make sure you do. I'd like to also acknowledge John Krause, MP, Member of Parliament out for Scenic Rim. Thank you for coming and representing David Crisafulli, Leader of the Opposition. And we've got great support team here, Nathan Percy and Ross Judicic. Thank you. Did I say that well for an Italian? For joining us at work with Adrian and the team there. A big welcome to you guys. Also, I'd like to welcome, I don't know if they've arrived yet, but the winners of the Brisbane Best Cafe that we ran last year, the team from Ballardy, they might not have arrived yet. Anton and Farah, lovely husband and wife team that are out at Yeronga, and they won the Brisbane Best Cafe awards that we ran last year with B105, and all the awards were totally independent and voted by the residents. Over 40,000 votes, I believe, in total, and over a quarter of all Brisbane cafes were nominated and entered into that. So some great results there. Apologies from the Leader of the Opposition, Mr David Crisafulli, did send his apologies, sent me a text and an email, and that's why you're also with us, John. Thank you. He's leading, I believe, Shadow Cabinet up in Cairns. I saw him, he was Cairns this morning, so thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here. I'm Phillip Di Bella, if I haven't met you. We'll be going through a bit of the findings and stuff that we found through our research, and I'll get into that in a minute. Then we'll have some Q&A time, and then we keep you hydrated. We've got some wine and beer and bubbles and some good Italian food, as if you're coming to Mama's house, you also get fed. But I really appreciate you guys being here, and I especially appreciate some of you had to move your diaries and all the rest of it to be here, so I really appreciate that. Can I welcome you, Lord Mayor, to come and say a few words and great team here at the Coffee Commune.
Well, thank you, Phil, and thanks for having me. It's great to be amongst a group of passionate small business operators and owners. I genuinely believe that Brisbane has to aspire to be the most small business friendly council in Australia. There are 500 different councils in Australia, but we have the aim and ambition to be the most small business friendly, and that's a journey that we're on at the moment. My own family was a small business family, migrant family as well. My dad came out from Germany, mum was born here. They started a small family business. My sister and I worked in that business growing up, and that really indicated to me not only the importance of small business, but also how hard it is in small business as well. And when you've got that small business and someone's sick, there's no one else to do that work. And anything that we can do as a council to make life a little bit easier for small business is something that we should do. When I became the Lord Mayor, it was around 5 years ago, 1 year before the pandemic, in fact. And so had this idea of what the future would look like. And then we went into the pandemic, which, sort of lasted. Actually, I just had my latest bout of COVID a few weeks ago. That was my third time, so it's still around. But the pandemic then lasted a few years. Then we had the flood come through as well in 2022. And then we've had this incredible global inflation crisis and a skill shortage emerge as well. But I remember going into the pandemic and all of the speculation was about mass unemployment. And Phil and I go way back. Phil's always been a great source of advice to the council and to consecutive Lord Mayors on what's happening in small business, as has Dominique as well in different roles. And the challenge at that time was always mass unemployment. There was an expectation that the pandemic would lead to mass unemployment. And our various government policies were introduced and that didn't eventuate to the extent that it was expected, which is great. But little did anyone expect that within a few short years we would have this massive skill shortage and so many jobs that can't be filled. And the challenges now with inflation as well. All of these things weren't even on the radar just a few years ago, but now are real life challenges. So it was really interesting, Phil, to have a look at this research because one of the things that we're always conscious of is red tape. One of the sad realities is that state government generally makes the red tape and then they give it to councils to implement. And so food safety is a classic example of that. The legislation is state legislation, but then the state government doesn't actually want to implement it. They give it to local councils to implement. And so we end up being the bad guys when it comes to a whole range of legislation that affects local business. And we want to try and limit that as much as possible. I mean, these things exist for a reason. And, you know, in the end, we don't want people dying. And so it's a very serious reason, but we need to limit that burden as much as possible. So it's fascinating to see this research because, you know, tonight we're here for Mythbusters, and I would have assumed that one of the top issues for small business is red tape. That would be my perception as well, and often a lot of the feedback that we get. But to see that there are other, even more critical issues as well was a real eye-opener. Having said that, doesn't mean we should rest when it comes to making Brisbane more small business friendly and also reducing red tape. In terms of what we've been doing, one of the things I did soon after becoming Lord Mayor was to introduce a local buy policy for our procurement. Now, each year, the Brisbane City Council awards around $1 billion worth of contracts. Sometimes it's more than $1 billion. And we have a target of 80% of all contracts to be awarded with local business in South East Queensland. And we've reached that target and exceeded that target every time since that policy existed. And that's seeing an incredible investment into the local community and local business. And where we can support smaller business, we do that as well. And we support small business contractors by giving them 7-day payment terms. So rather than waiting 30 or 40 days to pay an invoice, we pay it in 7 days. And that's an important cash flow thing, I know. And Ross is in charge of making sure that happens. We have the Brisbane Economic Development Agency as well, who you would be aware of, with Anthony Ryan leading that, who works closely with Ross. The Brisbane Business Hub, and there's a whole range of programs in the Business Hub as well, which if you don't know about, I would encourage you to take the opportunity to get familiar with. There's so much support on offer for businesses. Now, I know that one of the key things here in terms of businesses and the challenges that they are facing is capacity within the business itself. You might have started a business because you're passionate about a particular thing. It might have been coffee roasting, but being passionate about coffee roasting doesn't always equip you to run a business and all the challenges of businesses. And we had that feedback as well in Brisbane City Council, and the Business Hub exists to help upskill business people. And it's all done either for free or in very low-cost situations where people come in and they do mentoring, there's training, there's development, there's a whole range of support. And there's also that practical sort of concierge approach as well that we take, where if you've got a problem, we try and find solutions for you. And there's a whole range of bigger businesses that support the Business Hub as well with programs. So I guess the takeaway today is, if you're not familiar with it, please do have a look at the Business Hub. We've got a location on the Queen Street Mall in the old Regent Theatre building for the time being. The Regent Theatre is getting redeveloped at some stage in the future, and we'll relocate the Business Hub elsewhere. but it's an ongoing commitment that we have, as well as the local buy, as well as the 7-day payment, and as well as our ambition to be the most small business friendly city in Australia. So be keen to hear feedback as well. I can't stay too long, but I know my colleagues are here, and also Ross is here, Phil is here, and Phil is never backward in coming forward if there's something that we're doing wrong that we need to fix. And he's always been, as I said, a great source of feedback on a whole range of things. Phil was in charge of our Queen Street Mall Advisory Board and Brisbane Economic Development Board for a number of years, and has worked really closely with us to make sure that we can be better for local business and better for small business. So thanks for having me, Phil. Thank you for releasing this research. It's actually really important for decision makers. And one of the final things I wanted to say is that one of the biggest challenges that I've seen when it comes to government policy at all levels, when it comes to business, is often knee-jerk policy that's done without appropriate consultation and understanding of the impacts. And I know there's always a reason why policy changes, but we've seen time and time again that if it's done without appropriate feedback and consultation, there's unintended consequences which really make it hard for people, and we've seen that time and time again. So forums like this are really useful in making sure that we get the feedback that we need, we hear if there's issues, and also Dom, that is her job. She goes around the state making sure that the government at the state level is getting the feedback it needs from business right across Queensland, and Dom does a fantastic job with that as well. So with that, Phil, I'll hand back to you, but thank you so much for having me.
So, man, thanks for that. And Adrian pushed it. Business Hub is great. There's some great tools. Local council does amazing stuff. They've got a fabulous team that are very proactive, and I've always been a big advocate for it. If they're doing a shit job, I tell them, they know that. Just like I want to be told if I'm doing a shit job. But they do a great job, and there's a lot of support out there, and we commend the work you guys are doing. And don't forget, there is an election in 3 weeks, so if we want good work to keep going, let's keep voting the right way too, right? I could say that, but they can't. Another person who I hold dearly who's got so much experience and is doing an amazing job is Dominique. You're a treasure to the state, and an amazing award. I've had the pleasure of working with you on round tables at state and local level, but you really are a treasure. Was the former CEO of National Retail Association, is now the Queensland Small Business Commissioner, and you won't find a harder working person in that role that's getting around to all of Queensland, not just this part of Queensland, and listening to people. And Dom, come and say hello to everybody.
Well, thank you so much. It's so lovely to see so many business owners out and about. I know that you are all very busy, and sometimes, particularly with rain, it can be hard to come out and meet other like-minded people. But at the Queensland Small Business Commissioner's Office, we were set up to enhance the operating environment for small business across Queensland and to minimise the time and cost associated with disputes. So what that means is that we have a team of people available to take your calls. If you're having issues with landlords, with the ATO, business-to-business debt claims, it doesn't matter. Our team take those calls and we facilitate connections to where you need to be. And sometimes that's mediators, sometimes it's alternate dispute resolution. And at the moment we have about a 71% success rate. We resolve matters for under $200. And we predict we've saved about $17.6 million for small business across Queensland in the last 18 months, which is pretty significant. But our call volumes are up at the moment. So at the moment, there's about a 78% spike. We're up about 20% year on year in terms of businesses accessing. And the other part of our business is that we advocate at council, state and federal level as well. So we get together with all the other commissioners in the other states, and we work on things like the ATO, the Fair Work Ombudsman, the ACCC, any of those big issues that are really sort of front of mind for your business. So right now, if you'd asked me at the end of last year what were the things that were on small businesses' mind, I would tell you that it was training. I'm looking for employees. If I can get them, I can't house them, and then cost of living. But now it's just sharply shifted to things like electricity prices, insurance and crime. So no matter where we travel, whether it's in Brisbane, whether it's in Gundabindi, whether it's Karumba, they're the things that are coming up for our small business owners. So we work with councils and we run this thing called the Small Business Friendly Program, which of course Brisbane City Council is a member of, and they do amazing things like the Business Hub, as you've heard. But we also work with other councils across the state to invest in their small business communities to get the best out of them. So at the moment, there are 482,000 small businesses across Queensland. 62% of them are sole traders, and the rest are employing less than 20 people. We also know that they employ about 42% of our apprentices, and they're incredibly important to our economy. Nationally, they contribute about a third of GDP. So they are absolutely the engine room. We hear it time and time again, but I think they're more than that. What most people don't understand is that in communities, whether it's in Brisbane or elsewhere, they're the people that give back. They're the ones that are the first to donate to the local club. They're the ones that will give money to someone that needs it. They will fundraise, they will do all sorts of things, and they're very crucial to our communities. But I think when we look at what's happening to small business at this time, we know 45% of them are not profitable. About 75% of them will make less than the average wage, which is incredibly significant. So now more than ever, places like the Coffee Commune are incredibly important because they teach you how to run your business. It's those business basics. Understanding about tax, understanding about BAS, understanding what your price point should be. What's a balance sheet? What does that look like? All those calls that come through our hotline are very much about things like that. It's about the things that, we don't get in business to do. We don't get into business to sell coffee and then become the HR manager and the marketer and our accountant. But what we need our businesses to do in order to survive and keep going and keep growing is to understand those things, especially right now. Because we know interest rates absolutely hurt our small businesses more than anyone else. The things that we get to offer outside of that alternate dispute resolution is that we have free financial counsellors that are available. We can give you up to $5,000 to invest in whatever it is you might need. It could be services like accountants, lawyers, whatever it might be. We also have free wellness coaches because we know that being on that hamster wheel can be exhausting, but there's also $5,000 that you can access to get psychology support, whatever that might mean. We have 330 free mentors that you can access on any topic. It might be writing government grants, it could be social media. You can access those. I'll give you an hour and a half of their time and you can work through it. What I would say to you is, don't be afraid to ask. There's an incredible product called Grant Guru that you can access. It'll send you all of the different grants that are available, and about 70% of the monies that are out there at this time are not government related. It's from people like Telstra, big business, looking to invest in small businesses in their community to help them get on with what they do best, which is whatever their business is. Places like the Coffee Commune can also connect you with those, and of course look at your councils. Brisbane City Council does some incredible stuff, especially in female founders. Amongst other things, there's always investment in small businesses because we know that's what makes communities tick. This data that we've seen today is incredibly important to decision makers. We certainly use the data that the Coffee Commune have produced to agitate for things that businesses need, especially in cafe space. We know it's really hard right now. But the fact that you're showing up every day, the fact that you're here tonight is absolutely a win. And look, all I can say to you is make sure you lean on these resources, whether it's council, whether it's us, whether it's the Coffee Commune. All of these things are here to help you get on with what you do best. So thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, so as you can see, there's actually a lot going on, and the biggest problem we find is that people just don't know where to look or they don't go looking. And we're going to unpack that a little bit further in the research we found. Before I introduce Allan, who headed up the research, and he'll give you a bit of a synopsis and we'll have a bit of a Q&A together. A couple of things. The Lord Mayor and council teams needs to leave at 5:30, so they're not being rude when they need to usher out 5:30, especially if there's questions going, won't cut it off. But Ross and Nathan will still be here, and we'll have, I believe, John, you're still good to be here, and Dom, you're here for a little while. So come and mingle and say hello to these guys. It's very well worth knowing them, and you can see that they're very proactive in their space. Just by being here says a lot. They've had to move diary stuff, but they're very proactive. Every single person here is proactive in what they do. Also, everybody will get a copy. We've got your email address. You'll get a copy of the full report, which has got amazing information, because obviously we won't have time to go through it in complete depth tonight. Tonight we'll also, so you'll be able to get that on the website, or they'll email it to you, but check our website out anyway, coffeecommune.com.au. But tonight we also recorded a podcast, Allan and I, on it, and went deep on the issues and talked about suggestions and all that, and that'll drop in the Been There, Done That podcast, so you can get on Apple or Spotify. Bean as in coffee bean, there and done that. That'll drop tonight, so by tomorrow it'll be there and you'll be able to listen to it in further details. There's also your summary sheets that you've got in front of you. If you haven't got one, let the team know, they'll give them to you. But before our wonderful politicians do have to leave, some of them, one of the things we're also going to do is we're going to send you out a survey, because one of the things we do is work closely. So I work closely with Adrian, I work closely with Dominique, and I'll work closely with any government that wants to listen. But we've already gone out to some of our businesses and asked them what their number one, what will move the dial in the space of local, state and federal. Because the whole idea is not to badger government, it's not to put, to attack them, it's to work with them. And, if someone says, well, what's your dream? Are you going into politics? Never. I'd rather be working on the outside of it and helping. It's about working with the government to get results, not to pester them and in a bad way and badger them and put them down. It's to say, hey, they don't need to have all the answers. Adrian rang me many times during, COVID and said, what can we do for your industry? What are the pain points? What are the things that we can do? As did Peter Dutton, they were in government at the time, said, what can we do? And we got the visas lifted from 20 hours to 40 hours a week. And unfortunately, the current government's put them back in. But, if governments reach out and work with people like myself and other industry experts, they can get, they're not making decisions, I say, in their office that have a tsunami effect at the business level. And I can tell you, the wonderful people we've got here today, very proactive in that. But what we're doing on the back of that is we're collecting as much data as we can of what the pain points are. So when that survey comes out, please fill it out and lodge it and some of the stuff that's coming up, obviously, these will be of no shock to some of you, that this was collected from cafes already. Increasing flexibility of student work visas, increasing insurance costs, taxation that discourages getting a second job. It's a big one. They tax more for a second job. FPOS fees. Why are we getting charged on direct debits when it's our money versus credit cards, but the banks charge us? So you can start to see there's a realm of that. Rising costs in energy. Well, what can the government do? It's about passing this information on, saying this are the things that are affecting the business from the business, not your speculation. This is coming from the businesses. So I urge you to fill that survey out, because that data we collect helps us analyse it and then sit down with politicians at local, state and federal and go, this is what we can do to move the dial. And some of these things are not massive things, right? Some things are, and they take process, like a year, 2 years. You can't just change a visa overnight, stuff like that. But that's what we're doing here at the commune. And I just wanted to mention that before you guys have to leave, that we're doing that and we'll be passing all that data on. Because to me, it's about data analysis and then strategy, which segues nicely into the report. So we're going to give you a brief snapshot. Why did we want to do this report? Let me tell you by saying it's fully funded by the Coffee Commune. It wasn't funded by any government money, and we do that on purpose so that it's completely independent. It was over 9,000 data sources, so from different articles to different people to much more, and Allan will talk a bit more about that. But the purpose for us is to build our program. The Coffee Commune, one part is a facility. It's Australia's first and world-class facility where you can come and roast 1 kilo of coffee to thousands of kilos. You can roast yourself, we'll roast for you. You can bring your own green beans. No one offers any of that in the country. But the other side is we're similar to a hospitality chamber of commerce. We're a support network where we run workshops, where we have your podcast channels, we have buying power, we have IR, HR advice given out by, which we've teamed up with National Retail Association. So we work with people to make sure we're delivering education, we're delivering advocacy, we're helping the industry, and everything filters down to one promise. How do we help you accelerate your potential? So that is the why in Coffee Commune and why we're here tonight, and why we commissioned this paper to go ahead was, how can we get the data, analyse it, and then build a 12-month program around strategy that's going to help you accelerate your potential? And not from he said, she said, but from the source. So that was the why and why we're all here. And thank you again for coming. Let me introduce Allan Bonsall. Allan's one of the best branding strategists and marketing guys in the country. We've worked together for many years, did some work with Di Bella Coffee. He's written 2 books. He's written more than 2 books, but he wrote Entrepreneurial Intelligence in 2010 about the Di Bella story. And then recently, Game Changer, 17 Rules of Game Changer Thinking. He's been in the ad industry for a long, long time. So I don't miss anything. I've got your bio. But it's not your full bio because you're here all that. So Allan Bonsall's operating business is called Looking Glass, and he works in consulting roles. He's consulted with all levels of government across different things. But he's leading expert and commentator on strategic branding. Some of you will recognise his voice. He was on The Hidden Persuaders for 14 or 15 years on the ABC network. He spent 2.5 decades in advertising, 15 as a CEO of 2 of the state's most successful advertising agencies, and it was all around obviously branding, marketing solutions to Australian and international companies. For the past 20 years, he's worked closely with public and private organisations to build strategic plans around the strength of brand, and that's what he did for us at Di Bella Coffee, and again with the Coffee Commune. His most passionate belief, and I love this and always have, is that without a customer you don't have a business, and argues that brand is actually the heart of building customer loyalty and trust. So can you please join me in welcoming Allan Bonsall. Right, Allan, you're going to do most of the talking, not me, which is unusual. Yeah, I just don't want to slip over. Oh, you got it. Right. To give us a synopsis of the process and how you went about it.
Good afternoon. Right, how did we go about this? So, most of you would know the terminology primary research. This isn't. What we were looking to do was try and identify whether there were differences between the average small business and the hospitality small business. And if we then could recognise, as Phillip has just said, what are the smartest strategies that the Coffee Commune can put in place for the next 12 months, the next 2 years, to actually help small business in the hospitality sector. But that's not to exclude other small business. So what we actually set out to do was analyse as much of the data that had been created over the last couple of years, so 22, 23, given that we finalised this report late last year. And what we were looking for were research papers, academic papers, dealing with the issue of small business, the challenges confronting small business, and then looking at it specifically from a hospitality point of view. As Phillip said, there were close on 9,000, if you like, connections that we made through that search. So we actually did a Google search for all of that material. We pulled all of that material in, and every time we got a document, that document would have connections to other documents, other papers, other research studies. So by the end of that, across 3 different sectors, we finished up with, as we said, about 9,000 connections, data points. We analysed those data points then from the point of view of what you've seen as this snapshot. Now, Phillip made the point that I'd worked in the ad business for a long time. I don't any longer and haven't done it for quite some years, because I've been focused very much on strategic planning and brand strategy. But when I was first appointed to a role as managing director of an ad agency back in the, I won't say when, middle 80s, I knew nothing about managing a business. Absolutely nothing. I trained as an account director, or been trained as an account manager in the ad business, but I knew nothing about running a business. And the first question the chair asked me was, can I read a balance sheet? And I couldn't. So that was the first job I had, was to go and read a balance sheet. And the reason I say that is because I think what comes through loud and clear in this research is the fundamental of why so many small businesses fall over. And I think what we're seeing through this analysis, and we need to validate this, we probably need to do more work to be able to stand up here next year and say to you, well, we actually said this last year and we have now absolutely, categorically confirmed it. But what we are seeing is that, and the Harvard Business School put this out many, many years ago, and many of you will have seen, their process of how a small business grows to a medium business to a large business. And it's never linear. There are never, ever going to be 2 stories the same. But what it does say is that the further you are removed from your original skill set, the less you actually have in terms of skills to manage the business. And that's the thing that happens with most small business. What we see in small business is somebody who has a skill set. They might be a mechanic, they might be They might be a great chef. But as soon as they're removed from their core skills, they're out of their depth. Unless they're actually seeking the information and the knowledge and the learning. And of course, the other thing that we found in this study was that most small business people are spending so much time in the business, they have no opportunity to stand back and look at it and say, this is what I need to be doing strategically to move this forward. But the most, and I'm conscious of that word myth busting, I'm not going to say what I was told before about the expectation of tonight, but myth busting came about mainly because we don't believe that the things that people perceive to be the problems, and you've seen it in this list, you've seen it in this snapshot, what most small business people see as their key problems are number one, red tape. Number two, not being able to get the skills they want. Number three, higher labour costs. And number four, costs of materials and supplies. The truth of the matter is, much of that they can't do anything about. What they can do may have some influence on the way they run their business. But the real reason, when you analyse the data, when you look at what people, why companies are failing, why small businesses are failing, it's for the simple fact that they don't know how to create customers. They don't know how to build a customer base. And what they do is they rely on their traditional custom, and this is particularly the case in hospitality, where they will rely on a catchment area which is pretty tight, and they don't really understand how to grow their business, outside of that traditional customer base. So if we take what is the most important myth, I think, in all of this, and I'm very mindful of what the Mayor and what Dominique have been saying about the support that's available to small business. And yes, we acknowledge that, because that support is critical from the point of view of whether it was me reading a balance sheet or somebody else learning how to be compliant with health laws. The basic problem, I believe, is that we do not see enough small business people seeking assistance and help in those fundamentals of building a business and building a customer base. So the reality of the Coffee Commune, from where I sit, and I've been involved in a lot of organisations that have been membership driven. I was very much involved with the RACQ for a long time. And the fundamental here is that the Coffee Commune has taken that decision to step away, if you like, from all of the things that we believe are important, or small business believes are. Not to say that they're not to suggest for a moment that those things aren't necessary, they are. But what somebody has to be doing is providing the opportunities to learn how to create customers. And I suspect that from Philip's point of view, his success as an entrepreneur is because of his belief that the most important person in any business is the customer. It's not the people who work in the business, it's not the owner, it's the customer who actually makes that business successful.
Yeah, on that, Alan,
Sorry.
No, you're right. I'm just coming in, you told me you wanted me to commentate with you, so just wanted you to have some free rein. But, people ask me what the keys to business are on that point. So the biggest myth we're going to bust tonight, that it's not red tape and it's not government policy that leads the way in affecting your business. It's actually operators not getting the skills that they need. People ask me, are you a coffee expert? Well, if you take the word expert 10,000 hours, I'm probably an expert 4 times over. But I am better at strategy, branding and marketing, far better than I am in coffee. So I always say that I would not be in the top 2% of the coffee gurus in this country from a technical skill. but I'd be in the top 2% in being a strategy marketing in the coffee industry. And it's the skill. And the whole purpose of the commune on that point, and Business Hub, and the Queensland Small Business Commission's work, and all these other places that are available and touch points, is because the number one thing you're fundamentally doing in a business is solving a problem. And I see so many cafe owners, and this is something that you came through in the research and we talked about it on the podcast, is that people opening a cafe next door to a cafe with no point of difference. So the first thing I say to people is, what problem are you solving? If you run a business right now, you want to open a business, on the back of this study and the analysis is, you've got to be solving a problem that no one else does, or you've got to solve the problem better than your competition. The next point is, how relevant are you, right? The relevance is how you build your strategy. How do I build strategy to make me more relevant than anyone else? And then the third, once you've got 1 and 2 right, is you need to tell that story better, which is number 2 finding in the paper, which I'll get Allan to explain in a minute. So that's the paradigm I call it the magic dust, call it the silver bullet, whatever bullshit you want to call it. What problem do you solve? How relevant are you? And how do you tell the story better than anyone else? And guess what, guys? It doesn't change if you're a politician or own a business. And Adrian's been hearing that for 15, 20 years from me. It doesn't matter. It's the same thing. How does Adrian solve a problem as Lord Mayor with his team better than someone else that wants to be Lord Mayor? How relevant is their government, and how well do they tell the story? Because they could be doing great things, but if they're not telling the story, nobody knows. You get it? They've got a lot of people nodding, which is great, but that's what I call the secret template. Problem, relevance, tell the story. So the number one finding came that Allan just released. The number one finding was people don't have the business skills to operate their business predominantly in attracting new business. The last point I'll make on that, because you can read it in detail in the report, is up until pre-COVID, things were flying. Interest rates were low, disposable income was high, yeah? The facts are the facts, you can't argue it. Now with the global inflation, disposable income is down. What does that mean for small business and medium business? It means that you used to have a strategy that would sell more to the same customer because they had the money. We're now in a time where you've got to bring more customers in the door because people are spending less. And I'll give you our data, and our cafe is about 5% of what we do here at the commune. It does 1,200 transactions in a 5-day period. The average spend used to be $19.52. Fast forward to now, and I get the readings every day. $14.50. What used to be the bacon and eggs and the fancy breakfast is now the bacon and egg muffin. Saturday was a record day. The average transaction, $12. Bacon and egg muffins were the biggest hot selling thing with a cup of coffee. Now I know how to operate a business. I look at the data, I break it down, I analyse it, I build the strategy. That's giving you the living point of what Allan just said, that the findings found. People that are struggling now are doing it more tough, because everyone's doing it tough. It's not a time for profits right now. The ones that are doing it more tough than others are those that don't know how to get more customers in their door. They don't know how to operate their business. They don't know how to embrace technology that's available. The list goes on and on. Listen to the podcast, download get the document when it gets sent out to you because it goes in depth about it. But segue to point number 2, Allan, about marketing. Yeah?
I think one of the things that came through loud and clear in this work was that something like 70% of small business do not have any form of marketing strategy, any form of marketing plan. So when you look at what are the keys to survival, we've got Phillip talks about pre-COVID. Post-COVID, there has been an incredible surge in the number of cafes open, probably across the whole small business spectrum. But in cafes, it's just exploded. But the customers haven't followed. We haven't seen the same surge in customer numbers that you see in actual openings. There's something like 26,000 cafes in Australia, 5,000 plus in Queensland, but the customers are staying away. And the problem is compounded by the fact that there is greater competition. People are drinking more coffee at home, etc., etc. So when you look at it from a customer point of view, the critical factors for most small business is to create loyalty within the existing customer base. And the only way I know how to create loyalty is through a strong brand that consistently delivers what it needs to deliver. And that really is up to the differentiation that the business can create. The second thing is to create more customers. And the only way I know how to create more customers is to look at things from the customer's perspective. And I question how many small business owners really understand how to look at their business from their customer's point of view. One of the other things that came through loud and clear in the surveys or in the research was the idea that technology is a critical part of the way forward in being able to reduce the impact of not being able to get the right thing, increasing costs. But technology is also a double-edged sword. Technology can actually lose you customers. It can certainly lose you me, and I'm a very, very important part of everybody's mix. So again, there are certain issues that I think we're reinforcing through this work, and it's now something that we have to try and get out to the marketplace to understand some of the restrictions that they're imposing upon themselves simply because they're not asking the right questions. If we improve the understanding of customers, if we look at it from their perspective, and we look at what we are doing to differentiate our business from their perspective, that's what's coming through loud and clear in this book.
So the key is marketing, and people say to me, I was marketing school at uni, they wanted to kick me out, and then they made me Australia's youngest adjunct professor in marketing, go figure. Marketing is the art of telling a story so compelling that people choose you. So just let that sink in. And again, Adrian's heard this over and over the years, because it's the same whether we're talking personal brands, company brands, any brand. You've got to tell such a compelling story that people will emotionally engage and choose you. And if you're emotionally engaged, they choose you. Sometimes your product won't be the best. Often it won't be the best, because the best doesn't exist. Might not even be better than the place next door, but they choose you. Why? Because there's an emotional connection. And the art of marketing is being able to take that and tell that story. And there's 3 ways to tell a story. You own a voice, you buy the voice, or you earn it. And owning it is your websites, your business cards, and all the rest of it. And this, what the study found, people don't understand marketing. Number 2 is that's your advertising, buying a voice. Your advertising plan is part of a marketing plan. It's not the plan. Buying a voice. All you paid for ads, radio, socials, whatever you're paying ads for is buying a voice. And the third one, which is the most important, and Allan alluded to, is earning a voice. What are you doing so well with your current customer base that they go and tell others to encourage a bigger customer base to follow you? So in short, marketing is that art of telling a story so compelling people choose you, and you need to get that emotional engagement. So Lord Mayor needs to lead. The team, Deputy, thank you. Councillors, thank you very much. Round of applause, please. Thank you. So, and again, when people say, what's the silver bullet? It's that emotional connection. All we're doing in business, whether you're selling a product or service, is connecting a person to a product or service, yeah? The magic glue is emotional engagement. You're going to see it. We've got 2 elections. We've got a state and a local election this year. It's going to be the ones that people emotionally engage with that get voted for. Have a think about it. Then apply it to your business, apply it to what you're doing. What are you doing to emotionally engage? How are you telling that story? Because that was the number 2 finding. Now we move on to number 3, Allan. Let's talk us through the one that they thought would be, well, not the red tape, because that's 4, but the rising costs. And I'll segue it in this way for you. Well, I'll preface it this way. I'm 48. I started in this industry at 14. That's 34 years in this industry, 22 years of owning businesses. This is the first time in history that I've seen every single thing go up at the same time. Everything. This is the first time I have ever seen everything go up. It doesn't matter whether it's utilities, transport, products. Of course, some things have gone up more than others, but this is unprecedented. When they talk about 7% inflation, it's bullshit because it compounds. It's gone across everything, right? And it's global. We travelled overseas many times last year. It's global. It doesn't matter if you're in London, Paris, Italy, New Zealand, Singapore. It has happened everywhere and relative. So that's the third problem that we obviously found. Allan, let's talk about that and unpack it a bit.
Yeah, I think one of the, talking about rising costs, one of the things that again struck me, we looked overseas, we looked at what is comparable to Australia from a small business, if you like, structure is concerned. You hear me down the back? I wasn't, sorry. One of the things that we did look at was the international relationship, if you like, of small business. And it's quite clear that Australian small business is very, very similar to the UK, to Canada, to the US. But what also is quite clear is that in the US, there are far more small business operators operating at the top end where they're making money. And one of the reasons that we see in this work is the use of technology. And there's no question that in America, the technology boom has really spread throughout all of the people who are running small business. Much less here, much less so here. And what we're seeing, I think, is a reluctance to engage with technology for the right reasons, even though I may be turned off because of my age or because of whatever dynamic I bring to the whole story. But the reality is, what we have to do is get smarter. So the other point that comes through loud and clear is people working in the business rather than on the business, so we're not recognising. And when I look at the partners within the Coffee Commune, partners who are able to advise on energy savings, partners who can advise on HR issues to save the pain, then I recognise that we have the knowledge, we have the skills, we probably don't have the inclination to engage with those skills. And to me, that's the reason why we're doing this. It's the reason why we are pushing so hard through the web or through the Coffee Commune communication, trying to get people to engage with the skill sets and with the services that can actually reduce the impact of those rising costs. You're not going to change it. We all know that. There is no way that the cost of living is going to go backwards. So what we have to do is get smarter.
Allan, and that's well put. So technology is a great solution, yeah? We've got some people in the room. So who pays for Seek ads? Hands up, come on, be honest. Who's put ads on Seek? $500 a pop. Well, you've got a team over here, stand up, get ahead. Partners of the commune. Tinder for employment. It's not Tinder, so you're not going to find your husband or wife on it. But it's similar concept for unemployment. What is it, 1 million views a day?
Yeah.
Yep. How many job seekers on there at the moment?
78,000 at the moment.
78,000 people looking for work. You're looking for staff, jump on it. It's free. Won't be in 12 months' time, but it's free right now. But there's technology. Thank you and welcome, and thanks for partnering with the commune. You've got Gillian Hurst. Gillian, would you like to stand up, please? I know I put you on the spot. Over 40 years in the industry of hospitality here in Brisbane. Consults. She's worked with many of the members here and she's averaging about 1 in 3. For every dollar they spend with her, she saves them 3. So you need somebody to come in and consult. Here's somebody that can do it for you. Don't use, thanks Gillian, don't use that adage of can't afford it, because you know what? You won't be able to afford it in 12 months if you're going down. I don't have time. You'll have plenty of time in 12 months when you don't have a business left. Right? We work with Paysos, we work with Restoke. There's a whole heap of people and tools and services. We work with Silver Chef, who's in the audience as well. Right? These are people and tools that are part of the commune to help you get a hold of that cost. Because sometimes you need to spend money to save the money. Yeah? So it's not just about savings. You know, Don May from Domino's, when we had him here at our expo last year, talked about you can't save your way to the bottom. You've got to build more customers. You've got to invest so that it grows. And that's something we all need to do in our business. It's not a time to sit there and do nothing, but it's not a time to be looking at cutting expenses. This is the time to be getting smarter and working on our businesses. So we get to the last point before we take some Q&A from the audience. The last one was actually red tape and government. And I'll simplify it for you in terms of government. It was them making a decision in the ivory tower and causing a tsunami without consultation. And the one I really want to pick on in here is the work visas. So as we said, during COVID, Peter Dutton calls, what can we do? Lifts the visas a week later, opens it up. Great. 3% unemployment, shortage, 100,000 people left Australia. When the borders opened, less people. We had the visas, you're on visa, you weren't restricted at 20 hours. The current government, the wonderful Albanese, comes in and now puts a cap back on at 24 hours. So puts a cap back in at a time we've got low unemployment, and I'll give you the big curler. Can anyone in this room survive on 24 hours work a week? So it makes no sense. Now, whilst their intention might be good, let's not pick on them, but let's say their intention might be your jobs for Australians first, okay. But not at a time where it's 3% unemployment and there's shortage, right? Doesn't make any sense. But more importantly, consult with people like myself, people like Gillian who've been in the industry 40 years, and we'll tell you, if unemployment's at 10 or 12%, put a restriction on visas. But more importantly, how are these people going to survive when we've got shortages out there, which is driving cost of labour even further? Because we all know basic economics, supply and demand. So the roundup of that is simple. We at the commune want to work with you to get the data, to analyse it, to then work with the politicians to say, here's the information and the suggestions coming from the source, so that you're not making decisions that you don't have to make and at office that then filters through and has a tsunami effect on the public. Have I explained that well enough? And the latest one is that right to stop at 5 p.m. Now that's going to work. Have everyone heard about that? You can't email your employees and all the rest of it after 5 p.m. Well, that's going to work for maybe 50% of the Australian public. But what about those in the service industry? What about if you're in a coffee shop and your machine blows up at night time? Again, intention might be good, but the execution causes a whole lot of problem. So to summarise it, what we're looking at doing through this paper, through the work we're doing with Allan, the work we're doing with Dominique and with council and federal government is, don't make decisions without consultation. You heard the Lord Mayor say it, they do it well. Consult with industry first, then make the decisions. But we need the public to be a little bit more vocal. And at the commune, we're giving you that opportunity. Like I said, with the surveys that'll come out, fill them out and tell us what your pain points are that we can help fix and work with the relevant people. Allan?
There's nothing I can add to the idea of compliance and red tape. I think everybody in this room is fed up to the back teeth with the volume, but I don't think it's going to change. The type of red tape might change, but we just have to recognise that there are going to be continuing red tape issues. It's not going to go away. The more time we spend worrying about it, the less time we spend actually creating strategy to move ahead, to grow the business. That's the bottom line from my point of view, and that's what I think comes through very clear in this. But I also want to compliment the Coffee Commune. We're talking about opportunities to gain these skills at very low cost. I mean, we're not looking at charging huge dollars to run programs. What we're keen to do is get as many people as possible recognising how to grow their business and imparting the skills to do it. That's where the passion is.
No, it's a good point, and can I open up to the floor? Questions? So I'll summarise the four again, and again, you'll get the copy of the full report, which is about 38 pages and the rest of it, but number one is, and this is all shortened and paraphrased, number one key issue that came out of the data research was operating skills. So what do we need to do? Increase our ability to operate our businesses. Number two is telling the story, marketing, right? Building the customer base by telling our story better so that people choose us. Number three is the costs all going up at the same time, so surrounding yourself with the right organisations that can help you with that, embracing technology that can help you do that. And then number four is obviously being vocal where possible about the laws and changes so that we're part of the solution, not creating more problems. And that's the four key summaries that come very loud and clear out of that research that was done. That took 6 months, by the way. Allan, we thank you for doing a wonderful job, and obviously you work closely with us and your skill set and all the rest of it. But I'd like to open up to the floor. Questions?
Thank you. I'm just curious to hear from you about the technology versus customer service. Because for me, it's just, I'm not a fan of what's happening in terms of hospitality buffets, the restaurants. And how as a business define that line? I mean, yes, technology is great, but people also still want the connection and have a person actually taking care of you and getting interested in why are you here.
Great question. So everyone hear that? About the use of technology in its place? Simple solution is have all three. Give the customer the choice. The number one problem I see with business owners is their stubbornness to not ask the customer what they want. Now, without a customer, you don't have a business. That's why I always say it's the most important part of the thing. Doesn't mean they're always right, but without a customer, you don't have a business. So the short answer to that is have all three. Some people want to order quickly at an app on a table. Yeah, I do. When I go to my local that I go to every second day, I don't care if somebody comes and says hello and all the rest of it. I go there, I want a coffee, I want that option. When I'm going to a restaurant, no, I'd like to be served by a wait staff, because especially if it's the first time or whatever, but you want to know what the specials are and the rest of it. So the simple solution is to have all three. And some of the great cafes or operators right now have all three. You can order from the table, you can get up and go and order at the counter, or they'll actually serve you at the table. But to underpin it all, it depends on the type of business. You certainly would not be having technology ordering at the table if you're charging $40 for a meal or you're a fine dining restaurant. Defeats the whole concept. But there is a place for a small mum and dad operator or husband and wife or whatever it is, small business, if it's a grab and go style. But I would still offer counter service as well. It's just like these people that are saying no cash. Well, one, that should be illegal because cash is, part of the system, paying cash. And two, it's detrifying to your business because a lot of people just turn around and go, well, if you're not going to take my money, I'll go somewhere else. I will. Simple. So it's a similar argument, but there is a time and a place for it. But if you're a general everyday cafe, I would offer all three options. Some people say, no, it's counter service only. Well, what about if someone's elderly or not able to come to the counter? What are the sales you're missing out on? So, that's an important thing. But the best way is to ask your customers. Ask your customers whether they like it or not. We do that here. We use our cafe as a test case all the time. If we implement this system, would you adopt it? And then we put it in before we actually do it. We did it when we changed our milk over to Mullaney Dairies, which was going to be more expensive. We researched our customers first. We're going to have to put our coffee price up, but this is the story behind Mullaney Dairies. It's the only ESG coffee milk company. It ticks every ethical box you can imagine. It's locally owned. Its farmers get paid top dollar for their milk, and then Mullaney put it all together and send it out. But it's going to cost more. So we did that. 100% of our customers said yes, and so we put the milk in and charged the extra price for it. So talk to your customers, and that's something that I find people don't do enough. And remember that the needs of the customer constantly changes, especially after COVID. People want more for less. They don't want free, they want more for less. So what can you deliver that's more, but of value? So they're chasing value more than ever, and that's because disposable income is down. So it's common sense. Right? The $25 bacon and eggs is not going to sell like a ham and cheese croissant or a loaded croissant. Make it a croissant with bacon and egg. And put one egg, one ration of bacon, charge $12.50, $13.50, rather than $23, $24 meal. There's all different strategies in place if you follow that same fundamental. Research your customers.
I can't help but reinforce what Philip's saying, because understanding a customer, understanding what they need, what they want, it's all about asking questions. It's all about asking all of them questions, not just one or two. But getting to know those customers, getting to understand what their wants and needs are better than your competition does. As soon as you're in that space, your street's income.
Other questions?
Actually, I guess it's a conversation started. Do you find that a lot of the cafes that are failing or struggling are finding it hard to find the balance between cheap and value for money? Because they make everything cheaper and not necessarily attract customers, instead of finding the customers that see that value for money, or products on their menu that are value for money instead of just cheaper.
Again, I'd have to reinforce what we just said, that if you know your customers, if you understand your customers, if you're talking constantly to your customers, the question of value is something that I don't think we're comfortable asking. What is value? What do they actually perceive as value, as opposed to what we may perceive as value? Again, it's really this conversation that goes on between the cafe owner and the customers. Once the cafe owner understands what it is that they want to achieve, what they want their brand to represent, then asking your customers how does that sit with what they want or what they need.
Brad, and I'll give you a real life scenario on that that'll answer that and back up what Alan's saying, is McDonald's. Everyone knew, whether you go to McDonald's or not, it was a $5 transaction, 5-minute wait. You been to McDonald's lately? I haven't, but I know that it's now apparently $15 a transaction, and it's about a 15-minute wait. Their brand was always about quick convenience. I'm not going to get the best burger, the best chips in the world, but I'm going to get cheap, and I'm going to get it quick, and I'm not going to die of food poisoning. Now, if you think of how their model has evolved in the wrong way, their sales are down. They've never been lower. Because why? They've stepped out of their brand. Their brand was to be cheap. They can't be cheap. Vice versa, Domino's, who's been very public to say that, hey, we're not making the profit that we used to make. Great CEO, open and honest. However, franchisees are still making something. But their value, because where else can you feed a family for $40? Where can you get 2 pizzas, 2 sides for $40? Now, they don't sell their product as a pizza, because then they're competing with traditional pizza, which you pay about $30 for these days, being a more Italian-style pizza. So they know their market, coming back to brand. The brand of Domino's is value, and they constantly deliver that value. The brand of McDonald's was cheap, and now they're struggling. Have I answered that question? And I mean, we can all relate to those both examples, because you don't have to be a customer of each, but you see their pricing and what their brand represents, and it tells that story. Question?
Hey, thanks guys. Alan, thanks for the research, it's really good, and Phil, congratulations on all of this. I've got a question that sort of goes a little bit into the future. So if we've got a big run on cafes and restaurants entering the market and the market not responding to it, are we going into a crash with the industry? Are we expecting something like that? And could I recommend to my clients to get ready for this crash that's coming?
Great question. Well, unfortunately, the answer is yes, because numbers don't lie, right? You've got, Alan said before, 26,000 cafes across Australia now, 4,000? 5,000 in Queensland, 2,500 of those are in Brisbane. Yet, has the population increased in line with the cafes? So it's a simple economics. I'm very grateful and had the pleasure of being in Italy twice last year, in summer and winter. And you know what's fascinating about Italy? And it's gone up too. Pizza that used to, who's been to Italy lately? There's no more €6 margaritas, right? They're now 10, 12 euro for a margarita. So it's still cheaper than Australia, but it's gone up as well. They regulate where they put the, you will not see a street with 5 coffee shops or espresso bars in Italy, right? Unless there's population demand. Here, they're putting cafes in barber shops, which should be a health hazard anyway. So, you know, this is where regulation should come in without over-regulating. But the short answer is yes, we are going to see crash and burn. So we need to get prepared. What are we advising people on now? Smaller footprints. If your shop's 100 square metres, how do I cut it back to 50 or 60 square metres? If I open 12 hours a day, how do I cut it back to 8 hours a day? If I've got a menu with 50 items on it, how do I cut it back to 20 items? How do I take out more moving parts? How do I use technology so that I don't need the extra barista? So we've got colleagues of ours working on world-class coffee machines that remove baristas. Not completely, but instead of 3 baristas, you have 2. Instead of 2, you have 1. So, short answer, yes. If you're not prepared, get prepared. I always talk in business, in times of good, we plan for bad. And what's happened right now? Not enough people have planned for bad. I can tell you, me and my wife, 22 years in business, we've done well. We were planning for bad because everything was going so good for so long. So we were planning for bad because it had to come. Coffee prices didn't go up in 10 years. And I was telling the industry, they need to go up. And they were calling me an arsehole, saying that I was advocating for price increases. I said, it's going to happen. It's just going to happen all at once. Instead of going up 3 to 5% every year, it's just going to go kaboom. And guess what? The coffee market doubled. So be prepared always.
Can I just add something to what Philip's saying? if I look at that from a brand perspective, and if I'm going to make changes to what I'm offering, and I'm going to make those changes because I'm driven by needing to save dollars, needing to cut costs, needing to look at ways that I can make my business more efficient, then I'll be one of the cafes that goes out the door. That's my honest belief. If you look at it from a customer perspective, if you look at what the customer need is, and then cut your cloth accordingly, you're going to be one that will survive. It's as simple as that. But that's where your brand comes in, because if you can't articulate what your brand is, if you can't articulate what the values of that brand are, you won't survive anyway. Because it's not just competitors in the cafe market, it's competitors of people selling coffee at home. It's people selling barista courses so that I can be a better barista than the ones behind the counter here. If you don't really understand how to cut that cloth according to what the customer need is or what the customer want is, I would say you'll be one of the cafes or one of the businesses that will go out of business.
Questions? One more? No? Yes?
Just want to talk about price of coffee. As you said, it's been sitting at the same for the last 10 years and everything else has gone up. How do we fix this? This may not be accurate, but Australia's always in the top 3, top 5 country for the minimum wage in the world, but the price of a cup of cappuccinos sits around 30th in the world. To me, that's fundamental why the system's already broken. And I opened my first cafe 10 years ago, and I wasn't as experienced as I am now, and I had no idea how to run the cafe, but it was much more profitable back then than it is now. And to me, all these strategies help getting more customers, getting more sales, but to me that doesn't really solve the fundamental issue of the profit margin. To me, doing more deals, it actually, I think it results in like race to the bottom. It just makes it worse for everyone, I feel. How can we fix this, and what's your opinion about that?
Good question about price of coffee. Anyone follow me on socials? You'll have a good laugh. I posted about this last week, did I not? Yeah? Who drinks coffee? And we'll do it the opposite. Who doesn't drink coffee? Get out, you're not welcome. No. What's the average price? Just shout it out. What's the average price of a basic coffee now? Let me regulate it. 6 ounce, normal milk, single shot. Before you get into all the fancies. What price of coffee? Shout it out. $5. Shout it out. There you go, $5.50, yeah? And people get scared of that, yeah? What's the price of a beer when you go out? $12. Yeah? What's the cost price of a beer at a pub? $12. What's the cost price of a beer at a bottle shop? $2. Have a think of that. The short answer is customer education, which we're going to do about in a minute. 10 years ago, your wages were running at 30% if you're doing a great job, 35% if you're doing an average job. Today, wages are running at 45% if you're doing a good job, and 50% if you're doing an okay job. Have a think about that. That's where the profit's gone. Why? Because prices have not increased. Now let me revert this. Customers haven't been prepared to pay for their products in line with what wages have gone up. Just let it sink in. So the short answer is we've got to educate the consumer, which is why I spend a lot of time doing. We should be paying $6.50 for a coffee, and not even blink. You go to America and get a crap one for $8.50, US. Kid you not. But we're travelling, it's okay, it's all the nostalgia. $6.50 should be a base price for a coffee, and we shouldn't be blinking because it's a crafted product. It's touched so many hands, comes from an expert. That $2, $2.50 beer that you bought at the bottle shop that you put in your fridge, pop the top, you'll pay $12 to $15 in a pub. Why? Because of the environment, because of the service, yeah, but does it validate that much of a price difference? No. So, first quick fire answer is educating the customer is what we have to do. Second thing is put your price up and explain it. I walked into a cafe not long ago and they had like paper like that we've got on the wall, and that actually had, and there's a video, my wife told me we'll be able to provide them with the link. There's a video where somebody says, see this cup of coffee, I just got paid X amount of dollars, and then they use the cents to divide up where the money goes. 45% goes to wages, 25% goes to cost of goods, 10% goes to GST. You starting to get nervous? 5% goes to utilities. What are we down to? Not much. The average cafe that's kicking goals right now is lucky to be doing 7% profit. The majority of them, you heard the stats from our Queensland Small Business Commissioner, Dominique, most of them are not making any money. Or they're paid less than the award wage than if they went to go work wages. But if 26,000 cafes in Australia close their doors, where's all these people going to get employed? They employ between 1 and 19 people on average. So, very, very short answer. Customer needs to be educated. Next thing, what can we do is put our prices up, and if everybody does it together, there is no race to the bottom, right? There is no race to the bottom. But it comes back to, it's not just the product. The product is stagnant. And I'll finish on this point. Bottle of wine. Who's a wine drinker? Yeah, more than that, I'm sure. Think about this. Take wine on an level playing field, meaning the same land cost, the same everything. The cost of a bottle of wine does not change to produce it, cost of goods. What changes? Sorry? The brand. Think about it. Yellowtail costs the same as Grange to produce, but one's $800 a bottle, one's $10 a bottle. So brand is a big element of what you can charge for your product. People go, the $2 coffee at 7-Eleven. Yeah, of course they can do it. Powdered milk. Now they might have upgraded to normal milk. No staff. You make it yourself. Their beans cost $12 a kilo. They're buying them at not even at cost. But their strategy for 7-Eleven was to sell donuts because they got the rights to Krispy Kreme. So they bought the coffee in as a loss leader to sell donuts. It's not because the cup of coffee is worth $2. So it's horses for courses in your pricing, and that's no different if it's your menu item as well, right? Level of service, brand you're creating, ambience, what your rent is. Coles New Farm, I can tell you now, is a lot more expensive than Coles at Woodridge. And I'm not putting shit on anyone that lives in Woodridge. It's just fact. But why? Because the per square metre rate at Coles New Farm is probably $550 a square metre to rent. The square metre rate out at Woodridge is probably $90 a square metre. The rates for a house in New Farm is different to the rates in the house of Sunnybank. Both good areas, just different rates, because the value of the land is different. Your cafe should be no different. There should be a base minimum price for a product in your cafe, whether it's coffee, food, or whatever, and then you had the add-ons based on what costs and associations. But if you're not running 40% wages, 20% cost of goods, 10% GST, you've got no control over, 5% of utilities, you ain't going to be making any money. And now's not a time for super profits, now's the time to make a little bit of profit. You need to be operating your business. It's a time to be holding and planning for the good times. Make those footprints smaller, make those menus smaller, get more efficient. So that when the good times come around again, and there will be a clean out, it's not sustainable to have the numbers that we've got. 26,000 cafes will drop to about 18,000 cafes in the next 2 years, I guarantee you. So, you've got to be prepared.
Phillip, I think you mentioned the magic word just a moment ago. Who drinks wine?
I think it's time for wine. What do you reckon? I want to thank my team here at the Commune. They're unbelievable. That team there's led by my wife, Jana, looks after all of the membership side, and that with her team, Rowena in marketing, and May, our events manager, who's helped put all this together. Thank you. We thank Nicola, our chef. Round of applause for them. Without a great team, we don't achieve anything. And we thank Dominique for coming. We thank, obviously, politicians. John, thank you. And to you guys.